Welcome in everyone to this week's episode of the Mast Podcast. I'm your host Dalton Pence. I am a territory manager for Mast in the Kentucky, Southern Indiana, Southern Ohio, and Nashville area. I'm joined today by SilkBalance's Susan McPhie. Susan, welcome into the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Dalton. Thanks for the invitation. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
Of course. So SilkBalance, for those that don't know, is a company that specializes in spa water chemistry care. Susan has basically been with the company full time for about 11 years, but it was started by her father. Over the years, she has led the global sales and marketing initiatives, driving the company's growth and embracing new technologies and market strategies. Her background includes a blend of traditional business acumen with a forward-thinking approach to environmental responsibility. Susan, I definitely wanted to have you on because I think that there is sort of a trend with sort of making spa water care popular, sort of a portion of this pool spa industry that had sort of been overlooked, heading into the 2000s. So what can you kind of tell me about, from where you started in 2007, how has this portion of the industry grown to where it is in 2024?
Yeah, well, thank you for that lovely introduction. I think when I think about why SilkBalance came into existence and what the whole purpose was it was for was my father had spent quite a while as a COO of a major hot tub manufacturer. And his learnings from that was you can make a fantastic hot tub with all the jets and the lights and the water features and all those great kinds of things. And when the retailer was selling the product in the store, there was always this idea of the wellness and health benefits that you get from hot water immersion. And we know scientifically that's actually true. Everything from recovering from sports faster, if you're a skier, if you're a runner, that really helps with that, to lowering stress, to helping you sleep. But the one thing that really matters in that whole equation is you have to be getting in the water and you have to be using the water. And in order to do that, the water has to feel great when you're in it. You've got to feel good when you get out of it, and it's got to be easy to take care of. So that was really the ethos and the reason why SilkBalance came to be. It was, how can we solve this disconnection with water care management for the customer? Because the ultimate goal is to help them reach their health and wellness goals and aspirations from when they're buying a hot tub.
And I mean, since over the past 15 years, not even in the pool industry, but I feel like worldwide, whatever industry you're in, there's been this rise of sort of eco-conscious consumerism. Like, we're starting to see people more attentive to the environmental effects of certain products. How has, that sort of affected buying decisions for both the business owner, but also the homeowner as well? How have you seen that kind of changed in that time?
Well, I think SilkBalance was really a pioneer in looking at that movement for the customer. One of the complaints that always happens when someone buys a hot tub or a spa, or even if they're using a pool, is they want to use the least amount of chemicals as possible to have that freshwater experience. And of course, that means coming up with ideas on how can we reduce the harsh chemicals, but still make sure that their water is safe and easy to maintain. So that was really one of the things that we looked at doing, was making sure that we are including that eco-consciousness. And we did that back in 2007. In 2018, we won a global award for Best Green Product. So it was always kind of something that we did, that why we have a lot of that customer loyalty and retention for our brand is because it's something that people are really concerned about. They're, even if, for example, if they're living in California, they don't want to change their water out in their spa as often because it's expensive and it's something that, they don't want to do that often. So how can we create products that are consumable, so the retailer sells them over and over and over again, but also delivers on that promise of great water, easy to maintain, and and gives them that benefit of being eco-friendly and eco-conscious. And I think we see this huge shift, particularly in younger generations now, that they're looking at the climate and they're very concerned about the environment and the long-term effects of everything we do today. What does that mean in 10, 15, 20 years from now? So that even translates into pools and spas is, when you're changing out the water, you're using these different types of chemicals. When you go to drain the water, what effect does that have on, for a hot tub, if they want to drain it in their garden, or if it's going into, city water source, is that going to have any effect on that?
I feel like when you look at retail stores nationwide, and a lot of this might be market dependent, geographically dependent, but I feel like retail stores are starting to take spa water care more and more seriously because they see that the building of customer clientele, but also the retention of that clientele has a bunch of different advantages. Not just, I mean, a lot of people, will specialize in pool water care, but the spa side of things, it's not something that they've been looked at until pretty recently. How advantageous is it to be able to be trustworthy and reliable for spa customers to be able to go into a retail store to not only be able to get their pool water tested, but spa water tested as well?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question and a really good thing to look at. I think that the cost of customer acquisition can be incredibly high. So if you're selling somebody a hot tub, they're already your customer. And what we've always advocated for is to zoom out a little bit and look at that customer life cycle as not just the big purchase, the one and done. If they're purchasing something and, the life cycle of that customer should be 10 to 15 years of when you're engaging with them. And that's how long you should be having that relationship with them and continue to build. It's not just the cycle of putting them through the funnel from their interest in a hot tub to the delivery of the hot tub. That's only 50% of the revenue that you can generate off of a customer. And oftentimes more, you're able to generate more revenue through chemical sales to maintain their hot tub if you're providing products that are really successful for them and that are trusted and that are eco-friendly and they're coming in over and over again. Oftentimes what we see in a lot of our retailers across North America and Europe, they don't just sell hot tubs. A lot of them also sell fireplaces or patio furniture, or they have different offerings in their store, or they might have a valet service where they service the hot tub. And the more opportunities you have for interactions with your customer, the greater you can expand the offerings that they purchase from you. And then that can eventually translate. We've been around, as you mentioned, since 2007. So we've seen this firsthand, that when you have that customer loyal to buying their water care from you, they're, particularly if they're buying a trusted brand that works well and kind of takes away all their pain points of spa water care management. When it comes time for them to buy a new hot tub, they're going to be buying it from you because you have that extended long-term relationship with them, or they're going to recommend you to a friend, right? Customer referrals are huge because they're worth more. They're so valuable. And those are just the different kinds of things that we really think it's important to look at a bigger life cycle for that customer.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. And I look, I know I come from a retail setting as well. I started out in retail in a family business, so family business is a key theme for this episode of the show. But I'm thinking to myself, and I'm looking at the retail spot, and if you're selling hot tubs, it feels like it should be, a given that you're also selling the chemical line that could go with it, because it feels like, one of the main issues with having a retail store in 2024 is competing with the big box chains, right? It feels like you're losing a sector of business automatically by not having that, water care package at least available to the customer.
Yeah, that's a really good thing to touch on, because I think what happens is when most hot tub retailers, when they deliver a hot tub, they also deliver a water care startup kit. And if they're not putting their customer on, for example, we advocate for subscription-based wellness and water care programs where they consistently either get stuff shipped to them, every quarter, whatever that is. So you're retaining that revenue. But if you're not doing that, you're teaching somebody how to use different products to maintain their water. And if you're not actively engaging with retaining them, they're going to go somewhere else because they have to have products that maintain the water in a safe and comfortable way. So if you're not doing that at the very beginning of it, then they will go somewhere that's more convenient. I think one of the challenges that retailers have is not knowing exactly what's the best, most cost effective and simplest way to maintain that. And I think that, if a retailer really wants to maintain that steady revenue stream, and it's a guaranteed steady revenue stream because they're going to need those throughout the year, I think that investing in some kind of a software program is really important. I think that really helps with inventory management. It really helps with, the CRM. It really helps with managing that constant, supply that you need to make sure the customer has. And I think sometimes we hear in the spa, particularly if it's a spa retailer that also sells pools or services pools, and so we have different seasons for different products. And the pool season there's really a season for it, but we see oftentimes that their spas and hot tubs don't really have a season. There's something that people use all year round. So if a retailer is invested in a software program or some kind of a subscription-based monitoring program for their inventory and for their customer base, even when they're focusing on pools, they're not losing out on any of their hot tub chemical business. The other thing as well is with seasonal staff that come in, particularly in the pool season or in the hot tub season, we get really busy this time of year because we're getting into the winter months. When you're bringing on seasonal staff, if you have a robust and easy to manage software system, then it's really easy to onboard seasonal staff. If you have to run a bunch of credit cards every single month, or you have an auto ship program where you're sending stuff out and it's all done manual, your potential for revenue leakage is pretty dramatic. So that's one of the challenges, I think, is, if you set up at the very beginning and you have that, then it's really easy to implement and maintain. So the investment at the beginning might be, money to put in for the software and some training, but it will pay itself off in dividends over years by, doubling, tripling, or quadrupling that lifetime value of that customer.
Growing the business is half the battle. Getting the business is half the battle. The other portion is making sure they come back and you retain that business. And you and I both have family owned business experience, but from your side of where you're sitting, what can you tell those in the retail setting that make their money on the experience? Right? I mean, you come into a family owned business for the experience, for the personable side of things, for the expertise. How can people in the retail setting, what are some practices that they can put in place to increase retention percentage? Because getting the business is one thing, but also you have to make sure that they come back for your needs and not just go to a big box chain or use the internet.
Yeah, so I definitely think when you're looking at any type of a subscription based, you're looking at bundling your products for your customer. I think you have to think of, and we can't get rid of Amazon or big box stores because they're a part of our everyday existence. But you have to and people love it because it's simple. So you have to think, what can I do to be as simple as that? So you have to streamline everything that you're doing. You have to make all the interactions, really easy for the customer to engage with. On the retail side, I think working on customer loyalty and whether it's creating customer events within the store where you have customer water care classes, or you have community events that you can celebrate. I was just talking the other day with one of our retailers, and I was suggesting that they have a Christmas party where if they can hire a Santa that sits in the hot tub and comes and takes pictures, the kids on the side of the hot tub and Santa in there, just doing some fun, different kinds of stuff like that to get people to engage with your store, to make it fun as well. The other thing is having people come in to test their water as well. That's a really good practice, is telling them to come in. There's a lot of different types of technology that has evolved in water care, everything from monitoring systems to different ways of dispensing different types of chemicals. And I think retailers, those are really great for the customer, but you have to also make sure that you're looking at, am I doing things that drive customers away from my store and decrease interaction with them? Or with this new technology that's really great, what are the different things that I'm going to have to do and overcome to make sure that that customer is still coming in the store to interact? And I think the other thing that's really important too is, the follow-up and the interaction with the customer, whether it's setting up emails that go out, just even having those soft touches with customers, I think are really great. And I think that that's one thing that, people should continue to engage with is, meet your customers where they are, create loyalty programs, and do things that are fun.
Susan McPhie from SilkBalance, Director of Global Sales and Marketing, joining us on the Mass Podcast today. Susan, one thing that I am going to be incorporating into every show is a mailbag. And if you have any mailbag questions, you, the listeners, have any questions that you would like answered, drop them in the YouTube comment section below. Drop them or send an email to the email below. Be sure to ask your question, and we will pick a couple each week to discuss and answer. This week, only one, because it is a new show. So we're going to give the listener base a chance to sort of build this up into a recurring theme. But Susan, with your experience and media appearances talking about family business dynamics and really advocating for the friendly and conscious consumerism aspect of this, the question that we had someone introduce is, where do you see the spa water care industry side of things advancing in the next 5 years, in terms of not only from an eco side of things, but also technologically speaking?
Well, I think we've seen a lot of really great things come out in the past couple of years, and we're just sort of on the precipice of that. I think the continuation of eco-friendly products, I think that will push the narrative for all customers. I think particularly when you look at younger generations that are going to start buying hot tubs, they're not just going to be looking for it, they're going to be demanding that. So I think evolving into everything having a more eco-conscious component to what the offerings are. And I think that also goes hand in hand with technology. The younger generations that are coming through want things to be simple. Everyone's used to having a phone in their hand, so they want the ability to understand things, whether it's through different apps. And we've really started to see some great things come out that make things a lot more simple for people. I think that one thing that I'm really interested in is the conversation where you're looking for customers, and instead of just looking at demographics of customers, you're also looking at what a new term that's called value graphics. And I think that really leads into what you're talking about the eco-friendly. So a demographic would be, what is the age group, where do they live? But a value graphic is what matters to them, right? What speaks to them emotionally. And I think that's a really important thing. I think it casts a bigger net over who your customers are, but I think that's going to become more and more important over the next few decades of retail offerings.
I have to say, if I had to choose, I would choose spa over a pool, just because I'm a larger fan of hot water. Now, I will be the first to admit, when I was younger, when I used hot tubs, one thing that I did when I got out was just throw a little bit of chlorine in there. I was like, it should be fine. It's a small body of water. And I feel like that's sort of been a misconception about spas, really, for a very, very long time. And I'm only 26, so I have a very broad scope, or a very narrow scope of things, I should say. But at least in my experience, that's been that way. When you hear people like myself, the younger me, I should say, talk about, well, all you got to do is throw a little bit of chlorine in there, maybe some bromine tablets, and you're good to go. It's a small body of water. How do you navigate that, not only from your personal standpoint, but what's your recommendation for how retail shops should navigate that conversation? Because I can confirm that it has been conversations pretty recently.
Yeah, and I'll start off by saying, answering that question by just something personal, a little personal story. When I first met my husband now, Mike, he was a single father with three young kids, and they had a hot tub in their backyard. And I thought, oh, this is great, because I always like meeting people with hot tubs, particularly ones that aren't using our product, because I'm curious about how do they maintain their water. And Mike, I said, what is your routine? What do you normally do? And he said, honestly, with three young boys that are in soccer and hockey and different kinds of sports, he says, every once in a while, I just open up the lid and I just toss in some chlorine, exactly what you're talking about. And I said, okay, well, show me the pucks. And he goes, well, I'm a bit embarrassed, but I was just at this, said big box store, and they didn't have the spa pucks. So I bought pool pucks and I just threw a pool puck in there. And, my heart almost stopped. And I'm like, oh my goodness, the kids and the damage to the hot tub. And that's the thing, is it, when it comes to hot tub water care, if it's not simple, if it's not easy to implement, people just go to, solving the problem the best that they can. And when I started adding our product into the hot tub, it was a dramatic difference, because it changes how the water smells, how the water feels, how easy it is to maintain. So when it comes to hot tub water chemistry, when you look at a test strip on a hot tub, there's a few different things that are on there, from pH to alkalinity to your free chlorine or bromine. And all those things, I always say, they're on the test strip for a reason. They're not on the test strip for fun, so that you have more colors when you test it. And they really have to all be in the okay range, because they all work in tandem to make the chemistry of the water successful. And that's the thing, is most customers, if they're honest with you and you ask them how they measure their water care, they just open up the lid and they look and they're like, oh, it's a bit cloudy. I'll just, shake a little bit of the bottle and turn the jets on. And then they realize that when they've been trying to decrease the pH, they've done it too much, and they'll add pH increaser. And then they begin this big chase, and they're like, oh, I'll forget about it. I'll just dump a bunch of chlorine, because at least that's going to kill everything. That's not good for your parts. So it's not good for keeping your equipment for a long time. Not having all of your parameters in the right range doesn't make your sanitizer effective and efficient. It makes it really complicated. It doesn't make the water feel good. And what ends up happening is, over time, subconsciously, people will start using their spa less and less and less, to the point where, for some people, it becomes a really expensive water feature in their backyard, which is completely different than that first experience they had when they were in a retail store, buying a hot tub, wanting to spend more time with their family in the hot tub to engage in family time, or wanting to relax their muscles after a strenuous workout, or wanting to use their hot tub for sleep. So I think that, that's a very normal thing for people to just go to what is the simplest. And we know we need to use a sanitizer to kill bacteria and to make the water safe, but that's not all that you need to do.
Last question that I'll ask you today, Susan, and I really do appreciate you for coming on to this show. With all that we've talked about, and your idea of definitely continually pushing innovation, and it seems like I feel like I can speak for you when I say that innovation is definitely something that you promote. When you think about advice that you would give to the retail store owner, the person testing pool water, the decision makers of the business, if you will, what is one thing that you feel like you would tell them the most?
I would say, don't give away your customers after you've already earned them. So customer retention, right? So if you've had your sales team work really hard to sell a hot tub or to sell a pool, make sure they're working just as hard at the second half of that customer life cycle. Customer conversion, customer acquisition is a really expensive thing. And the easiest people to keep as your happy, loyal customers are the ones that you already have.
Understood. Well, that is Susan McPhie, Director of Global Sales and Marketing at SilkBalance. Once again, I want to thank you all for tuning into this week's episode of the Mass Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe on YouTube or whatever streaming service you utilize, and much more. Well, Dalton Pence signing off. We'll see you next week.